Okay, we will call the meeting to order. It is Wednesday, February the 18th, Board of Delegates meeting. I will call the meeting to order at 6:01. Can we do the roll call, please?
Yes, roll call. Okay, Abbott Loop. Airport Heights.
Hello, I'm here.
Hello, Emily. Basher. Bayshore Platte.
Present.
Hi, Bob. Bear Valley.
I'm here.
Hi, Caitlin. Birchwood. Campbell Park. He said he's going to join late and online. Chukiak. Here. Welcome. Downtown is not going to be here today. Eagle River.
Eagle River's here.
Hello. Eagle River Valley.
Yes, here.
Hi, Joy.
Hi there.
Okay. Fairview, I have Alan in the room and Kelly online, who is our voting delegate. I think Kelly's coming from way far away.
Lithuania.
I see Kelly.
Okay, Kelly, you're the voting delegate tonight?
I can concede to Alan if he prefers to be.
Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. I just need to know.
Sure. Yes. Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna
You
start
can
with
hear me.
Kelly, and if for some reason she disconnects, we can talk to Alan. Okay.
Perfect.
Girdwood, I have not seen, but let me check. Okay, great. Government Hill.
Bob French is off in that little box up in the corner there somewhere.
Hi, Bob. Hillside, welcome back. Sandy, I saw you.
Yes.
Hi.
Thank you.
Huffman O'Malley. Okay. Midtown. Here's welcome. Mountain View. I think coming. North Star.
Here, this is Jade.
Thanks, Jade. Northeast is not coming tonight. Old Seward Ocean View.
Yes, I'm here.
Hello. Rabbit Creek. Okay. Rogers Park. Here. Welcome back. Russian Jack. Here. Welcome. Sand Lake. Did I see Liz?
Yes. Hi.
Welcome. Scenic Foothills.
Here.
Thank you. South Edition.
Here.
I don't think we have Lee from Southport. Okay, Spenard. Here. Taku Campbell. Oh, I saw her. Sarah Alexander, you there?
I'm here. It's just running slow.
Thank you. Kathy, Turnigan. Here. Thank you. Turnigan Arm. I saw him. I know he's there. I see a thumbs up from Turnigan Arm. And University area.
Steve Callahan from UMed, Tudor Community Council. New.
Excuse me. We have 22. We have quorum. Yeah. Spelling TBD, right?
Yeah. One of the.
We'll get there. Let's see. Move forward. 22.
22, excellent. We'll move on to the consent agenda, which is approval of agenda and approval of minutes. Here a motion to approve the consent agenda items. Thank you very much. Second, anybody?
Second.
Thank you. Any objections? Okay, we're moving on. So in that case, we'll move to our main discussion topic, which is bylaw draft.
How about January minutes?
We're approving the minutes from January and the agenda. Those were the two things that we said.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. So we're moving on to the discussion of draft of the bylaw. Zoom. We had allocated 30 minutes. The reason is we wanted to finish at 8:45 to move on to the rest of the agenda tonight. When we have 30 minutes here, I think we can keep it to say 8:45, sorry, 18:45 or 6:45. We can extend it out to 40 minutes if there's still discussion tonight. But we want to finish at 2:45 so we can move on to the second part. So I'm just going to read what's here. Down here, we're assuming that everybody has already read the details. and reviewed all available resources. The primary purpose tonight is to clarify, answer questions, explain decisions. You're encouraged to bring any specific changes to our next meeting. There's no intent to act on this tonight. No intent to act before March. Yeah, before I hand over to Ronna and to Sarah, who's going to do a presentation. Paul, I wondered if you'd like to come up and join us since you're
I'm here.
yeah, but why don't you come up and join us since you've been very active on the
You want
plan.
to introduce?
Yeah, and you should just introduce yourself and then.
Paul Snyder with, UVA. Community Council.
He's on the bylaw.
Paul is on the bylaw committee, so questions can be directed to any people on the bylaw committee or others. Sarah, I'll hand it over to you for a short presentation.
All right, thank you. I'm going to attempt to share my screen. I've never done that before in this meeting, so bear with me just a second. So that way it's, we all know what we're talking about at the same time.
And I just want to acknowledge, I saw Tim from Rabbit Creek. Did I miss anybody else who's joined the meeting since we did roll call?
Karen
I
from
see Tim.
PCC.
Oh, no.
Karen,
Oh.
Karen, which community council are you with?
PCC.
Okay, great. But Catherine's here. Welcome, Karen.
Okay, I give everyone full permission to mock my very poor graphic design skills. They're awful. So just to kind of give an overview of how our bylaws work now, before we launch into some of the changes that we made between draft 1 and draft 2. A couple folks have requested, like, could we have a graphic representation? Sure. So here's sort of a graphic representation of how we work now. We have 36 of us, those are the little 35 guys. When I started this whole project, there were like 36 or 37, and now we're at 35. So don't count the dark blue circles. There's over 30 of the dark blue circles. That's the community council delegates. The light blue circles, those are the alternates. You can kind of see they're floating around the edge. The green ones, those are the officers. The green one with a circle around it, that's Ari. She serves as our ex officio non-voting member. And our primary purpose is the health and organization, or this health and structural organization that is the Federation of Community Councils. So does this go to the next slide? It does. Awesome. Okay. So our roles and responsibilities are to act in the best interest of the nonprofit that is the FCC and to ensure that it's operating in accordance with the mission and governing documents. So under the new bylaws, those roles and responsibilities would shift to the board of directors. So under the new model, it would be the coalition is that big circle of more than 30 community council delegates. They would elect the board of directors that still has that role of moving forward the Federation of Community Councils. The coalition's primary interest would be advocating for their communities, representing their community councils, answering to their community councils. And so that's why you've got the arrows going back and forth. You've got like a big green circle there. It's got a big fat arrow going in 2 directions. That's the liaison. And so I'll discuss that in just a moment. So I'm sure that has made everything perfectly clear with this beautiful design. We'll go into the details. So, oh, forgot I have this one. So yes, the FCC the FCC supports, you guys must have bad at nervous presenting. The coalition supports the FCC by electing the board of directors and through the rules of procedure. So some of the changes from draft 1 to draft 2, you've got this stapled packet labeled FCC bylaws, draft 1 to draft 2, change log and rationale, the what and why. I'm going to go over kind of the top 5 that we identified. Oops. So what we heard was confusion between what's the difference between members and delegates. we do identify in there once that this is a membership model, but we refer to them as delegates because we've all been delegates for decades at this point, I believe. So like why further confuse the matter, you know, we have the definition in there, the one time as membership model, hereafter delegates. So we're delegates representing our community councils. The next big change that we had was how to address delegate concerns. So there is a process in draft 2, where am I on here? Where should there be a concern, you're not left to be shouting in the void. There's a process to, let's see, they can move forward with concerns they have through the liaison that we established as part of the officers. You can call special meetings as a delegate to hear your concerns addressed by the board of directors. Then director eligibility. So this is for the board of directors. It was previously, let's see, where did we have that for previous directors? It was if you had previously been a delegate or an officer, you could. We narrowed that scope to within the past 24 months. You had to have been a delegate, an alternate, or an officer in the last 24 months. And the reason for leaving it open but narrowing that scope was we don't want to limit our pool of volunteers, but we also want to make sure that the folks that we have who are interested in running for a director seat understand what they're getting into and are up to what has been happening in, say, the last couple of years, as opposed to, well, I did it 10 years ago, so I'm sure it's the same. I'm not even sure we're the same organization we were a year ago, but you know, you could get up to speed if you've been here in the last 24 months. And then the coalition liaison, this was actually an idea of one of the current delegates. We had originally in draft 1, you know, your traditional 4 officers of president, vice president, chair, vice chair, secretary, and treasurer. We added a 5th, which is coalition liaison. And so their responsibility would be to serve as the chair of the coalition, but an officer on the board of directors. And so they are the direct line of communication at the board meetings for the coalition's concerns, questions, how it's going, and reporting back to the coalition at coalition meetings. So that is an elected position. And then the budget process. I'll have time for questions at the end because I think this might be the last one. Budget process. So we heard that folks might not want to be on the board of directors, but still want to have input on the budget. So there is a standing finance committee, and we cleaned up the language on that one. So now it's clear that it's not just the treasurer, it's the treasurer and at least 2 other people. But they would put together the budget and present it to the coalition of delegates for input, and then bring it back for final vote to the board of directors. Kathy, you have a question.
Well, just because my brain is mush, I think I'm gonna blame it on the barbecue chips. So the coalition, just one last time.
Yeah.
Who is the coalition?
So the coalition,
It's on.
so you know the second half of the meeting we have now, we kind of consider that a coalition meeting.
So it's the delegates. And they have
Yes.
to have a title named coalition. Or can't we just be delegates? And is it, what's the purpose of calling this coalition? Versus delegates?
We didn't get that far into why we called it coalition.
Because
It's a name, yeah.
A group of delegates.
A group,
Coalition is just
yeah.
another name for a group of delegates.
Yeah.
We're just delegates.
It's also partly because we've called the second hour of this meeting, the coalition meeting for the last year and a half, 2 years. So it's to try and to make it clearer that that's what is happening. It's effectively what we do in the second.
The current bylaws don't make any reference to that term, is that correct? Or is it in there?
Nothing is in there.
No.
Not
So
coalition,
this is
it's the board.
the new
Yeah.
name for the delegates.
Yes,
As far as the bylaws.
correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Are you ready for questions? or
So what was that
still
for us?
That was my last. Yes, I am ready for questions. I did the
Okay.
very brief.
I'll be.
Oh, right. That's, yeah,
Will you end your dinner? really quick?
Yeah, yes, I'll be done. That was just to make sure that we all.
I'll start here because normally I go right to left, but I'm going left to right for myself. So-
Yeah, just,
Right.
I may have misheard you in one statement that you made, because I thought you said that the liaison would be the chair of the coalition. And so,
Yes,
so then rather than it being elected within the board of directors, whoever is the chair of the coalition, it seems like automatically becomes the liaison. Rather than it separately being elected within the board. So,
so it's an elected officer position. So the coalition of delegates.
well, if indeed it is the chair of the coalition.
Mhm.
It seems like the coalition decides who is the chair of the coalition. That then becomes the,
That's right.
Yes.
see, that's where it's starting to get a little muddled.
They understand the model. So think about it this way, the coalition, once a year, the coalition is the model, is the basic of members meeting, right? So once a year, it's the same group of people. The coalition is all of the delegates. And that is the group that elects the coalition chair, the liaison. So it's exactly what you said. But they would do that through through effectively an annual election. One of the directors gets elected as the coalition liaison position, and it's the same group. So it is the coalition. But I see the terminology.
I'm sorry, but what she is saying is that the liaison is the chair of the coalition. So it seems like that when the coalition elects its chair, it automatically becomes the
Liaison.
the liaison. So there's a little bit of confusion, right?
I can see the confusion. They will elect the chair at the same time that other directors are being elected. That's the method we're using. So at the annual election process, the group delegates, the coalition of delegates, elects the coalition liaison.
Yeah.
But I can see there's kind of the same group as two different names in slightly different contexts.
You're calling out people.
Yes,
Okay.
sorry. Sorry, Alan. I know it's not.
So for very, yeah.
I'm gonna call you Kelly.
So, I guess I have a question here regarding the, delegates act as the formal representatives, of those councils. So for my question, typically, how does it relate to the role of the president of the council? Because typically, the president of the council has been assigned the responsibility of making formal information for distribution, out to our membership and the like. So I just want to make the clarity here. Is this, bylaw, are they replacing the role of the presidents? With these delegates? Or what's the distinction between the delegates' responsibilities and the president of the community council's responsibilities? In terms of operations of this organization.
Sure. So the bylaws are not intended to tell presidents or community councils what they're supposed to do. So each community council has their own way of determining who the delegate is. So some elect delegates, some their president or chair is automatically the delegates. Some it doesn't say at all. So we do address it in the new bylaws to say that if it's not addressed, it's the chair. It's default the chair. So with the coalition membership model, the idea is that the information that is disseminated at the coalition meetings, that goes back to your community councils in a very similar way that many councils do now. So, but your role as a delegate, when you're having coalition meetings, is to represent your community council as opposed to ensuring that the Federation of Community Councils is doing what it needs to do.
And provide a specific direction to, the executive director of the organization, in terms of, distribution of material? Is that changing for that to be the delegate? role?
Yes, because that would be the role of the board of directors.
Well,
Yeah, I think this.
Am I not understanding the question? Okay,
Do you want to restate the question?
Well, I'm just trying
Confused.
I'm just trying to clarify, from an operational perspective, right? Or typically, in history, that the president of the community council makes a request to the ED, he send this out to my membership.
oh, okay. I
Right?
follow, yeah.
Now you, and you're doing that as, a representative of the council.
Mhm.
So now you say the delegates are the formal representatives of these councils. And so it seems to me that this appears to be replacing, the role of the president of the councils in, communicating, to the federation's office to send, materials out to our membership.
Okay,
Is that, I just like to, that has clarity, is that the intent?
no, and that part does not change. So presidents can send things to staff to send out where it needs to go still. That does not change. That's a workflow that stays the same. The role of the delegate is to represent the community councils at these meetings, at the coalition meetings. But please send out my agenda, please post stuff to the website, that stays the same.
We're going to take two more questions in the room, then go online, so.
Yes,
Steve.
I think clarify that point too, is, I think you can assign that task, so that if you're the president, we can count, you can assign the task, be like, okay, you're now in charge, of making sure everything gets sent out, to your secretary or something. Or the delegate. It's not up to the community council to figure that out.
And communicate it to staff, because if,
The peeps who run it,
Right.
because we have a president, two alternates, one alternate showed up. And then our alternate quit, or our delegate quit, kind of shows to the meeting.
Yeah.
So, that's why it's up here, we had an alternate picked out already. Like, so, if anything happened to our delegate, the peeps here knew that I was the alternate, just in writing. Yeah. You understand it?
Suppose so.
Yeah, it's a little confusing.
We might come back to that. Did you have another question?
Well, I don't have a question, I just want to
Okay.
clarify.
Do you want me to go? Sorry. Yeah, I'm gonna go on. Sorry, then I'll come back to you afterwards, man. Sorry, do you want to question?
Yeah, within the bylaws, it's pretty clear when you're talking about the officers of the corporation. That there's a chair, vice chair, so on and so forth, but I don't see anything that specific with regard to the board of directors. And now, within this, you're saying we're gonna have 7 to 11 board of directors. When we can't fill the 4 positions that we currently have, I don't know how we're gonna fit 7 or 11 volunteers to do that. And then complicated further, you did the officers of the corporation are elected by and from the board of directors. Now, the question is, what if you don't have 7 volunteers? Now, in the bylaws under the officers of the corporation, they say, one person can fill more than one position. And so theoretically, with the exception of the chair, there's a couple positions who put in both. So in theory, on the board of directors or for the corporate or the officers of the corporation, you could theoretically have 2 individuals instead of 7. Or instead of the 5 position, because you have, it says in here, they can hold multiple positions. So I can see it's getting down to a point where you've got 2 people on the board of directors and 5 votes. Now, does each person get 1 vote, or does each position get 1 vote?
Oh,
okay, sorry. I don't see a situation where 2 people can make decisions for the entirety, so I might want to touch base with you offline, or we can do that here. Because I'm not sure I follow how that would happen. The idea is that we would get 7 people, because 7 want to join us.
And it's enough to fill our current positions.
It's a challenge. But I think with more defined roles, we will be more successful. I think there's been. Now, mind you, I've only been here for a year and a half, but I think there's been some confusion about what the board, the executive roles are. So I think that if we can narrow those down and clarify what those are, and then also have some members at large that don't necessarily have the responsibility of chair and vice chair, I think that makes it easier to recruit.
I have a lot of issues trying to sell this to my council.
Mhm.
I think the basic question is that, why do we need to restructure this dramatically? I've been involved in the council since 1995, and I've never been in a meeting where the corporate business have taken any significant part of the daily operations. So I'm at a loss for trying to explain why.
Okay.
Can I speak to that just a little bit?
Yeah.
So part of the problem is that because this organization has not prioritized the nonprofit, we are struggling from a structure standpoint. I think we've talked about like a code of conduct that the bylaws haven't been updated since 2005, our financial policies from like 2003, our personnel policies from like 2008. And so the fact that we spend the majority of our time as an organization on community councils is amazing. We should be doing that work. But we do, like, to be a functioning nonprofit, to be something that can keep up and serve councils better, the question is like, would a smaller body who can focus on those like nonprofit business work be helpful so that this body can spend its time doing what it wants to be doing, which is talking about community councils and we can better serve community councils. I know from like a staff position, I came in, you know, asking a lot of questions about like where we didn't have a debit card when I came in, right? So we were paying everything by check, which was causing accounting headaches. Like our grant tracking, you know, we had the fiscal sponsorship, if you guys remember last year, and that was like a big thing and a big hurdle that we had to address. So there's like a lot of, you know, even if the bylaws don't change, this body will need to spend more time in nonprofit then, because there's a lot of stuff that needs to get updated, or we are not going to be able to function in an honest way.
And I will say that another struggle with that has been stability. So there's a lot of cycling in and out because you have, you know, say 20 active councils that are regularly active, but their delegate might only be active for the year, and then you get a new delegate. But when you have that happening 20 people over the course of 12 months, you always have a new person at a meeting. That's fantastic. We love new faces, but that means that you're educating one more person. And so you can't pick up where you left off. You pick up over here and keep going. And so it's one step forward, two steps back. And so with a board of directors and a coalition of delegates, you have new people coming into the coalition of delegates as that learning base. And then from there, you elect your board of directors who's been doing delegate work for a while, because that's where they're coming from. And the board of directors is that stable board of directors that can do the day-to-day nonprofit work and build the committees, which can also be made up of delegates.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to two people online next. Is Tim first, then Jade, and then I'll come back into the room.
I am just gonna recognize, I saw Lizzie and who else? Dawn joined on the Zoom, and Kevin.
Tim, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a couple comments and questions. The first one is to the previous questioner's point around two people doing all the business. Wouldn't that be limited by the fact that two people wouldn't represent a quorum? So you would be insulated from two people making decisions because when they had a meeting, there would be no quorum. Am I right to think it that way?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And then my other question, or well, my other comment is I'm getting there with this, you guys. I think it's getting a lot better, and I see the merit for it. I think it's always helpful to remember what the original intent was, which as we look at these new bylaws, which is to clear up more space for policy exchange discussions amongst the council to work on citywide issues. I think there's even, I mean, we do a good job of that, but I think we could do more. And so if this clears the space to allow us to do more, where there can be more coordination and more conversation back and forth. There's so many citywide issues that affect us all. I'm thinking of TISDO, I'm thinking of the stormwater utility, all of these things that we can't do in a 20-minute presentation and a PowerPoint and then move on to the next agenda item. So I hear a lot of pushback. I'm just going to encourage everyone to try and have an open mind with this, because I do see where this is going and I'm starting to wrap my head around it. And I think it is a positive step forward. Having said that, I have one clarifying question around the difference between directors and the coalition delegates. The way I understand it is you have to have been a delegate within the previous 24 months to serve on the board of directors. Is that, I guess the question I have is, somebody becomes a director and then they're no longer after the point when they're no longer a delegate, and the community council they came from then appoints a substitute or replacement delegate, then would you have a situation where you had an overrepresentation of one community council on the coalition because that board member, do they go back and forth? Are you getting what my question is here? So let's say the president of the board of directors came from Rabbit Creek, and then the Rabbit Creek decided to send a different delegate. So now you have two people from Rabbit Creek in the organization. Would you have two votes and an overrepresentation of a single community council? I hope that is clear.
The short answer is no.
Okay.
Because yeah, if a community council decides person B is now our delegate, even though person A is on the board of directors, that person on the board of directors is no longer the delegate and doesn't have that delegate vote. They're on the board of directors representing FCC interests. So Rabbit Creek, in your example, would still have to only have that one vote.
So they would have a board of directors
Yeah,
vote, but not a coalition vote, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. Good job, you guys. I think you're getting there, at least from where I stand.
Been a slow journey. Jade online.
Hey, thanks. Yeah, I wanted to speak a little bit to the question before of like, what is the point of this, selling it to the council? I think I really appreciated what Tim had to say about like, we could be doing a lot more as the coalition. And I think that's totally true. I think that, just from the bylaw revisions, I mean, obviously you're not going to revise the bylaws very often, but this has taken basically, by the time we're done, probably about 6 months at least worth of meeting. That's a lot of our time that we could have been spent working on other issues that are of interest of the coalition to collaborate. And I think it's really fair to say that the daily business of running a nonprofit is just not this group's interest. Like, that's not why we're really here. Sure, people have interest in helping direct where the FCC is going and how they're supporting us, but that can still happen under a new model. And I work at a nonprofit. I am currently starting a new nonprofit. I was previously on the board of a small nonprofit that had one paid staff member. And small nonprofits typically have a working board, and that is how they're able to do things, because having one or two staff members is really hard because you don't have a lot of time. And nonprofits, it's extremely difficult to go from one or two staff members to any more than one or two. And so most nonprofits rely on working boards to do a lot of pretty serious work and put in a lot of time and have the institutional knowledge, even between executive directors that might leave. And it's extremely important for the health of a nonprofit to have a functional working board that has experience with the organization. And to Ariana's point of like, the one thing that was interesting for me when I was prepping for the little speech I gave to the assembly, I met with Ariana and talked a little bit about the history of the FCC and learned about that, what she had to tell me. And adjusted for inflation, I think I might have mentioned this in my speech, the funding for FCC from the start was like over $400,000. And they had like 3 or 4 paid staff members and several AmeriCorps volunteers. Like, it was a much more robustly supported organization from the outset when the municipality was founded and when the FCC was integrated into the municipality's structure. And it has withered since then. The funding was not increased, the funding was cut, et cetera. And it is only a recent restoration of some of that vision of what the FCC can and should be to have increased the funding to be able to hire a more professional full-time person like Ari and a second person, that is a good thing and a step in the right direction. And I think we've seen the benefit of that. Those of you who were at the last week's like leadership conference thing or 2 weeks ago, I think that was an incredibly helpful event. I learned a lot of other delegates learned a lot. That is just not the kind of thing that FCC had time for before. And so as the FCC is sort of professionalizing back into what it used to be, which was a well-staffed, well-funded organization that provides a lot of services and organizes events and does all this other work, they need to have a real nonprofit board that is working and consistent and dedicated folks that want to spend their time on it. Having geeks like me, maybe I probably won't be on the FCC board, but I'm geeky about the other things, the foster kid advocacy and bike advocacy. That's why I've been on those boards and spent all this time. And so I think just trying to help people understand that the FCC has not really been what it was intended to be for the last 10 or 15 years since they've been cutting the budget. And it hasn't been able to because it hasn't had the budget. And that was not the intent of what the FCC can and should be. And I think that I really believe in community councils. And I think that adjusting the bylaw structure like this is really critical to increasing the ability of community councils as a coalition to do important work, but also the FCC just help support us in that role. Thank you for listening to my soapbox speech. I hope that helps you sell it to your councils.
Thank you. Marilyn.
Thank you. Marilyn Philippon, Rogers Park. Just to be clear, because Rogers Park members of our community council are very concerned about being disenfranchised, if you will, from the whole process. So I want to understand in the new model, there is the coalition which exists of the officers in addition to a new the elected position of a delegate liaison. I'm hoping that delegate liaison then will be communicating with the 7 delegates that sit on the coalition board.
Do you mean the directors?
And, and then how does that liaison then and those delegates that sit on that board communicate to the community councils that may not be represented on that board, disseminate the information that's necessary to get to the community councils. So they're not disenfranchised.
So some of that will be set by policy and procedure as opposed to the bylaws, but the primary role of that liaison, like that is their job. And if they're not doing their job, there is the removal of an elected officer process that's outlined in the bylaws. So if that hits a bump and the coalition of delegates recognize we're not getting the information we need, that's happening. You are our liaison to the board of directors. We're not hearing from you. There's a process to remove them, but their job is to be an elected officer on the board of directors to bring forward that information. Like they would have a report in a meeting, they would be communicating via the traditional methods of email. Like, hey guys, this came up at a meeting. We need to have a meeting of the board of directors, or we'd like to hear from you as the board of directors at this meeting. Those kinds of things.
So to follow
Yes.
up, not interrupt, I'm sorry, but then the information that the office staff disseminates to presidents would include, I presume, what happened at the coalition meeting with the other delegates and the liaison. I don't see anything in the draft here that talks about the liaison. So I was kind of interested in that,
I believe it's under officers. It's an officer to be added.
Yeah.
So yes, the part where like Ari and Ally email presidents or whoever the appointed person is that gets information from the FCC, that part wouldn't change. So if you still have those lines of communication open for like like I said, please post my agenda, or if we're having this trouble, can you offer us some support? But that is the role of the staff,
Right.
to do that, to communicate or to assist councils directly.
Continuing then, for that report be more detailed? Sorry, I heard.
So
I don't,
the coalition would still, this meeting would continue to occur and all of you would continue to be invited and encouraged to join. We could have it even if we didn't have quorum, right? Like, and you guys, because except for the once a year when you're electing officer or electing the board, you don't have to have quorum because you're not making decisions on behalf of the organization at that point. And so I'd still send out a recap email, and essentially we'd include as part of the agenda, a coalition liaison report where they update the group on what's happening at board meetings. So you'd have regular, and if you guys had concerns, you could, ask to be on the agenda or bring it back to the coalition, and the coalition liaison's your chair. So if you're not happy with them, you elect a new chair, right?
Okay, just
It's just
one follow-up.
Yeah, can I just say one thing before?
Under officers.
No, actually, why don't you ask a question?
Well, go ahead if you have.
No, please go ahead.
clarifying. Well, under officers, when the elections are held in the day, then are the president and the vice president roles on alternating years or? Yes.
Yeah.
Because it
Yes.
really seems like we need to have.
Yeah.
Forward, at least somebody, a board who was there previously. To carry forward.
I know we did alternating.
The board itself rotates, not the officers, because there's 7 of them, so up to 7, so half of them, only half will roll off at any given time. So that there's always half who are there.
Okay.
Yeah,
Have that historical perspective.
Yes.
Yeah.
We will not have a whole new board of 7 who have never been there before.
yeah, I think it's
And
under
that is not what was in, oh, okay.
Sorry, Chris first,
Thank you.
then
Thank you.
John, and then. Yes,
We got
I know.
2 minutes, so we
But
don't have to
I
hold.
also have one from Tim, so let's start with Chris.
To add to what the gentleman in the navy blue coat said and to what Roger Starks said. Midtown Community Council has some really serious concerns about what we're trying to do. We have 2 members who are past presidents. We have one of those 2 people who had Ariana's job. They look at the FCC as a very, very small entity. They have a budget of about $200,000. They have 2 employees. That's it. It's very small. And a lot of us sit on boards for other nonprofits, they have budgets of millions and millions of dollars. And they have thousands of people in them. We're not, we're the staff, we're very small. And they're concerned about being disenfranchised. The idea of having a liaison, if my community council has a problem, we don't want a liaison bringing it forward. If this passes, we want to bring it forward ourselves so that we can say what we want to say, not having it digested by someone else. My community council board surprised me this week, actually yesterday. They really want to know why this is happening after all this time that everybody's worked. They do not understand why. We were given 3 reasons at the beginning of our meeting that it needs to happen, and they were basically personnel and finance. Again, $200,000 budget, 2 people. It doesn't warrant 30 police jobs, does it? I don't think it does. I think we need to be really careful with what we're doing. Community councils have been in Anchorage for X amount of years. They've been very successful. The FCC has been here for X amount of years, and it's been gone up and down on depending on who the personnel was, so on. She won't be here forever. I won't be here forever. We want this to continue in the future, but we want it stupid simple. And stupid simple comes from the Army. If anybody's ever deployed overseas, you want things stupid simple so they work. We want this to work. We don't want it to bog down in the minutia. So I'm just relaying what my board is saying.
I'm surprised to hear the Army is an example of something, your opposite, but, John. And then technically we're out of time, so I'll let them ask the question. I think everybody else has already asked a question, so
We'll come back.
We'll come back possibly at the end of our second meeting, but
So I feel currently disenfranchised because I think we're spending so much time on that minutia and technical details that could be done by a board. And I am very appreciative of the current board that people were willing to stand up and do that technical stuff. I'm not interested in it. I don't have time in it, but there are very critical issues facing my community council. And I would like to bring those forward. I would like to have policies that we can discuss in these meetings, that we can be a strong voice in our municipality. So I am very in favor of other people who are willing to step forward and deal with the day-to-day minutia that I have no interest in. I think establishing these rules so the board knows what they're supposed to do is a great step forward.
thank you. So what we will do now, we'll move on to our second part, to the coalition part of the meeting now. We're a couple of minutes later than we were intending. And then if there's still interest and we have time, we could potentially come back to these specific items. Bylaws item. Okay, so move on to page 2. We are now the coalition meeting. So again, we have different hats. It's not about the internals of the non-profit. It's not about the minutiae and the technical details, as John said, which of course we're very interested in. This is about community council issues and issues in the broader community. So let's jump straight into education topics. Council updates.
Yeah, we have Rabbit Creek. You have an update?
Yes, thank you. We're continuing to monitor the Safer Seward Highway. We just finished our comments that we're going to be submitting to DOT. The deadline for that is coming up here in another week, so I encourage everybody to be paying attention to that. We still don't feel like we're getting some of the answers that we want from DOT about that project, and that while we support making the highway safer, we feel like the size and scope of that is still beyond the pale. And so we have significant concerns about that. We have significant concerns about what the impact on Potter Marsh is going to be, where there will now be no access from the road in the middle of Potter Marsh. As you can pull out now, they'll have parking lots at either end, and then it will be either up to a 2.9-mile walk into the various pullouts. And we're concerned that that will create people just parking wherever they want. So a lot of safety concerns, a lot of concerns about the impact on Potter Marsh. The current design is a 2-stepped design that would have it's 4-lane divided highway, but it would be tiered, and one of the tiers would be almost well, if you know where the big quarry is, out on the highway, not at Bird, but near Indian, where they did all the quarrying for the fill. The current design would require a quarry or a wall dynamited out of the side of the hill that would be twice the size of that and would be significantly longer. It would end up rerouting the Turnagain Arm Trail, which is a trail that a lot of people use in our neighborhood. So we're monitoring that very closely. So that's pretty much the biggest thing that we're working on right now, and appreciate the time.
Thank you. Rogers Park.
Oh, okay. Again, Marilyn Pelopon, Rogers Park. We have 2 issues that we're following. The fireweed lane update. Our transportation committee, few people who are diligently following that, and we'll see what happens with that. We don't really have a planning and zoning report yet, so we're hoping to be able to give more comment. Secondly, we will be hopefully applying for an Anchorage Park Foundation grant to eradicate the bird cherry or mayday tree infestation that is along the Campbell Creek area. And so we'll see where that goes. Those are 2 main issues that we're working on.
Thank you. Russian Jack.
Russ and Jack, Kathleen Plunkett. And I mentioned it at last meeting, but at our meeting last week, we did vote, and I'm assuming you got a copy of the resolution 2026-1. If not, I have one I can give you.
That's an Ally question.
Because I did grab an extra, but that had to do with what I brought up last time about the snow removal issues, especially regarding the width of the roads and clearing snow around the fire hydrants and the safety issues with that. Because we have several handicapped people in our area that are having real issues and problems, and even though the roads have been cleared, not all of them are real wide. He was talking to Daryl, he says, yeah, Bogota is only a lane and a half wide, and it is, and that's a major road for the Muni, not one of the smaller roads. But regardless, I did grab an extra copy. I'll give it to Ari if anyone wants it. They can reach out. It's a pretty long one. We have a fire department expert who does a lot of training that wrote it up, and I think it turned out rather good. She did a great presentation on it. It's something that impacts the whole city, quite frankly, with issues with, can they get to a fire in time? Are they able to get the water, etc.? Can they even get down the road? So that's all I have.
Thank you. Sand Lake, if you have any updates, you've got about a minute to share with what's going on in your council. I think we have both Liz and Denny here. Or you can say no update. Oh.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll remind everybody that the submission for the request for capital improvement projects is due, the CAPSIS, CAPCIS, the acronym, is due this Friday, February 20th. We have submitted 3 requests, 2 dealing with water safety issues, 1 for Tanana Hills because of the development that is occurring over at the airport, the other one over at Sand Lake. And we have a 3rd request for a study for the flooding issues being experienced by the subdivisions by the Meadows and DeLong Lake. So we have a lot of water issues and drainage issues in our part of the city. Any questions?
Scenic Foothills.
Yeah, Roger Shaw, Scenic Foothills. We just had our first meeting with new members that previously had been in Steve's area. Thanks for giving us all those new members to our community council. We've been trying to give those to us for years, as I recall. And
You're welcome.
And we did have a few of those members show up for our council meeting, so we were thankful for that. One of our biggest issues now is internally in that we're needing to see more people come and participate and be willing to serve on our board, and that's much of what we're trying to do right now is in terms of reorganization and get more people interested.
Thank you. South Edition.
South Edition is part of the District 1 and which includes downtown Fairview, Government Hill, North Star, Midtown, Mountain View, and South Edition. And we've worked together over the last couple of weeks to create a candidate forum for assembly members who are running in District 1. And we are having a community conversation and interviews and debate this coming Saturday, February 21st at the Fairview Community Recreation Center. And there's been a lot of hard work with by people like Jay Powell from North Star, now from Fairview, and others trying to bring this together and to have relevant questions that are geared towards our need for the issues facing our individual neighborhoods. And we're very hopeful that we'll have a good turnout. And then people will be able to view and listen what the candidates have to say about specific issues that we see that are impacting us.
Thank you. Spinard.
Yeah, so we have been passing some resolutions, in support of pedestrian infrastructure. So the last one that we passed was, in support of clearing pedestrian infrastructure. We've noticed a lot of, snow getting pushed onto recently cleared sidewalks. So the sidewalks will be cleared and then snow from the road gets pushed onto the sidewalks. And in one case, because we included a picture of our resolution, the international interchange specifically by Minnesota, it's a hill and all of this snow got pushed down from above onto the bike trail and pedestrian trail, which thankfully nobody was on it at the time because that would have been hundreds of pounds of really hard snow landing on you. And it would be impassable. So we also have a pretty high pedestrian population. So yeah, sending that in. We're also working on an event with various providers who assist with food insecurity. So the event is meant to give direction to those who want to help that don't know how, and give opportunities for those who are struggling to find sufficient food sources, bring those together and get everybody talking about it. That was originally going to be just like a 20-minute panel at our meeting. It's going to be a thing now that needs more than 20 minutes at our meeting. And Kathy's probably going to tell you all about the West Anchorage Candidates Forum. So that's all I have.
Taku Campbell.
Sorry, I have my little intern in the background, but so right now we're focused on trying to get a community cleanup day planned, Australia. So we're trying to do that the third week of May. We did it last year around Taku Lake, just cleaning up the trails and stuff like that. So we're working on organizing that a little bit further in advance this year. Also, we're just kind of going through a lot of license renewals because we have a lot of marijuana and alcohol licenses in our district. So we're just focusing in on checking to see who's a good operator, that kind of thing, and getting into some operating agreements with people just to make sure like that there's a good neighbor clause in there for some of the operators. So that's kind of been our main focus. Thank you.
Thank you. Turning it.
Thank you. Kathy Gleason, Turnigan. We always have like 10 things like to talk about, but I'm trying to limit them to, 5 or so. With regard to a couple of airport related items, we've been dealing with this proposal for the fencing that defines the Turnigan boundary and the airport boundary on the Lakewood Seaplane Base portion. They're planning to remove that fencing. So we're trying to kind of weigh what kind of consequences and looking forward, future development and how that potentially could affect neighbors and so forth. Right now, it's I'll look into that. And then like tomorrow, there's our third working group meeting tomorrow morning with Part 150 noise study, and this is air study, air noise only, not ground. That's a separate document that would have to be and which we're gonna try and push for that as well. And so then there's an open house tomorrow evening that also, anybody that's interested in apartment noise, airport noise, and that's at the coast in they're all Spinard. So yes, West Anchorage Candidates Forum. So Turnigan, Sand Lake, Spinard, Taku Campbell, we're all gonna coalesce and try and organize our annual West Anchorage Candidates Forum. We haven't set a date yet. We need to kick that off and start meeting, and so I try to attend yours if I can, see how that goes, but unfortunately, we're not gonna be able to meet in our rec center like we normally do, so we're gonna have to find another venue, so no date yet, stay tuned. Certainly the Heritage Land Bank plan, the Assembly approved last night. I testified on behalf of the council on some very long-standing input that we've given over a lot of period of time, and there have been people at HLB, and so one of the things that I referenced since it was 1986, that certain parcels owned by the state should be transferred to the community, like anyway, parks and trails and things. And so I had Raleigh asked the HLB rep, where's the status on that? And the response was, I had no idea about any of this, so we'll have to look into it. I could have gotten up and told them because we've been following this forever. But anyway, and then of course, we're continuing with our input on the Big Street Trail connection. With regard to certain impacts and working with the project team on that. And then we are going to submit comments on the regional parks plan because there's some significant proposals with regard to the coastal trail within the Turin and West Anchorage area, coastal area that we're not sure widening it to the extent they want to will be practical because in Turin, most of the trail is just an easement on private property. So we'll have to continue to work on it. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Turnigan Arm.
This is Michael Packard with Turnigan Arm. We had our meeting this last week. I provided some information about the Rural Health Transformation Program. I also provided some information about the WUICAT. The fire department's got some money to do some chipping and some mitigation, as it were, because we're so close to the park, or both of our communities down here. There's going to be a chipping program. We've got to kind of schedule that, see when it's going to happen, see what kind of money they have, and get everybody together on that. We had the assessor was down. We have a lot of people that are real concerned about their tax assessments. We've got some that are changed more than 60%, and then there's some that went down. So I had the assessor down. We spent about half of our meeting with the assessor. The other half of the meeting, we had some issues with a vendor in Bird Creek. And the other half of the meeting, we kind of spent with the vendor and answering questions and all the problems we're having there. So, and we have one big issue, and that's a safer Seward Highway. And next week is the last time you can put in comments. If you haven't gone and looked at the website, Safer Seward Highway, you need to. There's very few pullouts now in the new plan. There's no acceleration lanes. There's no deceleration lanes. When they're going to go up high on through Rainbow and through Windy, there's a whole area that's going to have to get cut down, and there's really no pullouts. They say, oh, this is going to be great because it'll be great views. Well, unfortunately, if you don't have a pullout, nobody can stop and look at that view. So if you got tourists up here that want to look at that view, they're going to be driving slow in the fast lane looking at the view. So we've made lots of comments. We've talked to our Congress people. Our representatives also going to send a letter. So that helps a lot. And anybody that's looked at that, look it over pretty closely, because there's lots of places where you have to drive down the road, turn around, drive back up the road to get to where you want to go. You can't just cross wherever you want to cross. So be sure and look at that and make some comments. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. And last but not least, you met Tudor.
Our boundaries name changed. The name isn't quite right. Be a little spelling change here. So stay tuned. Yes, we lost an area to scenic foothills. They gained a portion of our area, which is fine. Unfortunately, we did lose our vice president. Now scenic foothills. But we're now going to be having elections probably at the next meeting, because we finally got some people who stepped up to be nominated. So that's good. We passed some resolutions. There were some parcels along Tudor Road that are going to be changed to what's called Main Street Corridor land use designation on the land use plan that will allow commercial development on those parcels. So we have resolutions supporting those land use changes. Yeah, we're actually updating our own bylaws, because you get a new name, a new boundary, you gotta update your bylaws. More work for us. And of course, when you combine with another community council, you gotta put all those bylaws together, so that'll be interesting. I did bring up the FCC bylaws, and no one seemed to be concerned We were on bylaws to worry about. Of course, everyone's concerned about snow clearing and DOT does a terrible job clearing snow onto the road. I think that complaint comes up every winter. The big thing that's still going on is the school closures. We have Tudor Elementary, we also have Lake Otis Elementary, is that elementary? Okay, those two are in our area, apparently, they may be shut down. And they're on the table again, today's ADN, slated to be possibly closed. So I reminded Dave Donnelly if he wants to condo those schools up, give me a call and we'll start condoing those fast as we can. We'll see what happens here. I guess a number of people showed up at the school board meeting and made a lot of noise. And to be honest, I'm not in tune with the school district who goes on to schools. That seems to be the main concern, school closures. And the budget, school budget. That's about it.
Hey, thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. So we're going to move on to the reports. We'll start with the mayor's report. You want to join us at the front?
Yeah, we're trying.
There's a microphone right there.
Yeah, or you can come to the. Yeah. Why don't you do it? That's fine. Here you go. How are you, buddy?
Great.
Want to make sure.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for I'm
Basher.
from the mayor's office.
We didn't get an update from Basher.
Oh, well.
We do quarterly reports, Don, so Basher will be next month.
Okay. We just
Yeah.
had, I mean, we won't have one next month, so. Okay.
Thank you.
There's two separate flyers. So I brought flyers.
Oh.
Sure. In front of the television.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Oh, Scout.
Thanks, let's see.
Yes.
Sorry, I was just thinking Kate, so you'll have to forgive my slight steadiness. Okay. There's two different flyers, so I'm gonna send them around, and I think Aria gave you a digital version.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, for the folks online.
Yes, we'll
Great.
get it to them.
Okay, so mostly Graham from the mayor's office, so lovely to be here with you all. I wanted to talk with you all about the bonds, and we'll also be coming around and hopefully speaking to all of your councils. I think I've reached out to many of you, and if I haven't reached out, then maybe Nolan or Nora or Suzanne Blake or someone from the mayor's office will be reaching out to schedule some time to come and chat with your council about the bonds. But I thought we could also take a second here if you all have any big picture questions. I think you all know more than the average person about how the bonds work, but in general, if you don't, the municipality's operating budget is generally covered under the tax cap. So that's something the assembly has already approved. That's how we pay for ongoing expenses. Municipality's capital budget, so roads, park improvements, other big capital expenses are voted on by you. You, the voters, get to decide whether you want to support new fire trucks for the fire department, new police vehicles for the police, improvements to the parks, improvements to the roads. You all get to decide on each of those bonds. You'll make that decision in April. Your ballots will come to you starting in March. So I think you all know more than the average person, but happy to sort of walk through. I think there are 7 municipal bonds, and then there's the one-time school district levy. So we've got the Parks and Recreation bond, which I know you all do a ton of advocacy on. These are a lot of the parks that we've been planning. Things like making significant improvements to Eastchester Park, investing in the Mountain View Community Center, which is an after-school program, sort of great. And we know parks are the gems of our community, and they're a lot of the reason a lot of us live. I was just at Kincaid. I love our parks. I'm sure many of you do too. We've got the police service area bond. That's a really small bond. You'll see it's only $350,000. That's right now at the Elmore Police headquarters. They have to put down plywood boards so the officers can get from the parking lot to the building. So we'd like to fix their parking lot so that they don't have to do that anymore. Pretty small bond there. The fire service area protection, that's $2.5 million. That is going to be replacing fire engines.
On the back, you'll see we've got the Chugach State Park Access Service Area Capital Improvement Bond, so it's CASA. So that's a type of bond that voters approve that improves access to Chugach State Park. So in this case, most of that funding is going to go to the Basher parking lot, which I know the Basher Community Council has some thoughts about, so eager to hear more about that. And then we've got the public safety and transit capital improvement bonds. One of the things about the transit bonds is their match for federal money. So that's a 90-10 split or a 88-12 split. So we get really good bang for our buck with the transit money. And the other that's funding ambulances, that's funding road safety. That's a lot of things we've heard from you all that you care about. Community facilities, things like replacing the boilers at Old City Hall so that we can have a library there, fixing up LUSAC, fixing up the PAC, things that are really key. A lot of those Project 80s buildings that got built, but we never put any money aside for maintenance. So that's this one. And then we've got ARDSA, the Roads and Drainage Service Area bonds. That's the bread and butter bond. That's all the road improvements. A lot of that is matching funds for federal money through AMATs and things like fixing potholes, improving roads, traffic calming, speed bumps, a lot of the things you all really care a lot about. So each of those 7 you can vote yes or no on. You can vote yes on all of them. You can vote no on all of them. Pick and choose as you please. But happy to answer questions about them. John.
Why is the 11 point in education tax levy just a one-time levy?
That's a good question. One reason is because the amount will change year to year. So this brings us up to the maximum that we as the municipality can contribute to the school district, and which is historically what we do, right? As a municipality, we give as much as the state allows us to give to our schools. So this brings us up to that normal baseline, but depending on what the state legislature does, that number will change. I think we've also heard from the voters like a real concern about property taxes. And so I think this as a one-time levy gives the voters the opportunity to vote on it this one time, and then it's going to come back again next year as something the voters will need to continue to approve. So we just want to make sure we're not creating a new permanent tax, being mindful of the property tax burden.
So we will always have a one-time levy?
Yes. Until we get maybe more stability and we figure out, okay, this is something the voters do generally approve. This is something the voters would be likely to approve a recurring levy on, and we know also how much it needs to be. Yeah. Okay, I think I saw some hands over here. Yeah.
Okay, so on the regular, most of the regular bonds for the community, we already have several levies that are in existence for like 10 to 20 years. I know there's one for fire, APD, snow removal. How does that work with these? And I want to make sure we're not duplicating.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Please.
Yeah, so there's the you all approved, voters approved last year the levy for snow removal equipment. So that has allowed us to sort of on a more ongoing basis upgrade the graders. Like the average age of our graders was over 15 years. So that levy you don't need to reauthorize because last year the voters approved for that.
And it's not here.
It's not here. So that's because last year it was approved not as a one-time levy, but as a recurring levy. The police last year the levy for police vehicles was not approved. And so the police department did not get that funding. But otherwise, yeah, there's no, we can't.
The fire department one from several years ago. that
Yeah,
wasn't-
I'll follow up on that. I think.
And I thought there was an APD one as well for like ropes open dope type things as well
Okay.
separate.
I'll look into that more. Yeah, I mean, the bond council is very strict and they will never let us for the same thing with 2 different bonds. So it could be that this is additional to that. It could be that those run out, but I'll get more information about that.
I think there's a couple of area-wide bonds. One is APD, IT, but really for all police across the municipality.
Okay.
And then another EMS one.
That's since I'm talking about all of you and you all represent many different parts of the municipality, not all of these bonds increase your taxes, right? If you're outside of ARDSA, if you're in a limited road service area on the hillside, or you're in Eagle River or Girdwood, right? These are not necessarily going to increase your property taxes. Yeah. Yeah.
But not all.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of them that still will increase my taxes.
That's right.
But I'm a little frustrated by the fact that we always go after bonds. Bonds are just another tax because you have to pay interest on those bonds, that's a tax. And we tend to put the bonds out there for things that people care about. And we just spend money on the things that people would probably not rather spend money on. What's the total amount of tax increase per $100,000? These all.
Is that information, is that not on the sheet?
No,
That's a great question.
I went looking for what you said, and it says it for the school district, but the other ones don't have the.
Oh, okay, I have the numbers here. I'll read them to you and then we can follow up also in writing. So the parks bond would be an approximately $1. No,
And this is per 100,000.
per 100,000, so for the, I'm just making sure I'm reading the right, so for the parks bond, per 100,000 of taxable property value. It looks like it would be about $2.35 for the parks bond.
And how usually we do this, you've got approximately $77 million in bonds. Is it just a way to calculate Patsy, where you're going?
Well, I hope so, because the other bonds, I don't have that information for. So that's a great question, and I will follow up and
Will you send it to me?
we'll get that number. Yeah, and I'll make sure the materials have it when we.
It just seems like this is just a way to get around the tax cut.
Yeah.
And that's what frustrates me as a homeowner.
Yeah.
Who already pays a significant amount in property tax.
Right. I guess, well, I mean, I think, I hear you about that we're paying interest on this, why are we borrowing money to pay for things that we know are gonna happen every, I hear that, but I think one of the upsides of the bond program is the voters decide every time, so. I think the idea that it's getting around the tax cap is not exactly true, because it's giving the voters more control about what they want the municipal budget to do. And I think, I might also challenge the idea that we're spending the operating budget on things that voters don't like, I mean. 2/3 of the operating budget are police, fire, and street maintenance. 2/3 of the municipal operating budget is police, fire, and street maintenance. So the bonds are actually not, like, in terms of the type of activity we're funding, not significantly different from the operating budget. It's just paying for the capital side of things.
But in most budgets, the cost of equipment to be replaced is part of your operating budget.
Oh, yeah.
We're not doing that, we're pushing that out separately as a bond issue.
Right. I mean, I think, if we did that for our roads, we'd bankrupt the municipality. We have $1 billion in unpaid road maintenance. So I mean, I think because of the tax cap, that sort of does put us in this position of having to bond out to pay for those big long-term expenses. But I hear you. It's a bigger conversation to have. Fair enough.
Hi, Greg, how nice to see you.
Yeah.
Marilyn Philippon, Rogers Park. The one-time tax levy for education, $11.8 million, that is dedicated to go to education issues.
Yeah, to teachers specifically.
Right.
Yeah.
Which there's been a lot of information in the paper of late, and last Sunday's paper had a complete rundown of all the bonds and the amount of money that it would cost folks per $100,000 of your home value. And so look that back up and if you have read it, because I mean, it's for me as a retired teacher, it could be significant, but I want to pay for these things, and these are things that roads, fire, ambulances, which I have had to use this year. We need to have permanent equipment and workers to serve our community. We're just going downhill and just saying no to all this stuff doesn't help. So thank you for bringing that up. And
Right, we have a question online as well. Michael? My neighbor?
This is Michael Packard with Turnigan Arm. Say, I have a question. We've passed a lot of bonds in the past. How many millions do we have sitting that we haven't spent?
That is a great question. Yeah. That's one of the advantages of doing an audit every year and catching up on the audits is it does help us to understand exactly how much unspent funds we have. Generally, what's nice about unspent bond funds for the municipality is that you, the voters, authorize us to buy bonds but we don't actually do that until we need the money. And so it's not like if you authorize $20 million of road bonds and we only built $10 million worth of roads, we never actually borrowed the other 10. So we're not like paying interest on money that you all have authorized. That authorization is still sitting there potentially, but it's not costing the taxpayer any interest.
So
Generally,
how many millions do we have setting that hasn't been spent?
I will see if we can get that number. That's a good question. I know you didn't ask this question, but we're retiring about $35 million worth of bonds this year.
Yeah, actually, I have a question, I guess, or comment.
Yeah.
I've been trying to answer that same question with Carol. I saw a 38% increase in my assessments from a horribly big number already. But so I've been trying to answer that same question, and it's so complex because we have retired bond debt, and we have debt that's allocated to a particular task but is never going to be spent. And then we have different rates depending on when the bonds were actually taken out. So it's very, very hard to calculate. I'm glad you've got professionals to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, trying to get those answers is very, very difficult. So I'm looking forward to the numbers.
Yeah, thanks, Mike.
Yeah, if there are any other
I think
questions.
it's Daniel. Yeah.
Daniel, then Steve.
Thanks to your point about when the bonds were issued, several years ago when rates were really low, we refinanced and restructured a lot of bond debt. And so that debt became cheaper to service. Now, when we issue $70 or $80 million in a given year, and we retire 30 or 40, we're taking out twice as much debt, but we're also doing it at higher interest rates. And we don't have, the guarantee that rates will come back down. So when you talk about 2/3 of our budget being these critical elements, well, there's also the bond debt service and bond those infrastructures for those. So it really is even ameliorated. But the question is, a few years ago, we started seeing bond proposals for things like fire trucks, ambulances. And I apologize, I didn't get a chance to read the full text of this year's proposal, but traditionally you would bond for infrastructure, something that was tangible. And it seems like we've gone toward bonding for not just operations and maintenance, but positions. So like the last ambulance or fire truck a few years ago, it had several positions and their salaries included, which should be in operation, but we were bonding for an annual personal service. My question is, do we have any positions or their staffing costs included in the bonds? Are we paying interest and bonding long-term for a short-term service?
That's a great question. I know that, for example, the PM&E department, the project management and engineering department, which is part of Public Works, is almost all of their positions are bond funded because they deliver bond projects. So they're like the engineers and the project managers who actually do the public engagement process and design the road and manage the construction contract. And so those positions are all bond funded. I think you're specifically asking about, there was a situation where maybe like an ambulance also came with the staff.
So ambulance would become too old for service.
Right.
The request would come forward to replace it.
Yeah.
The voters would, of course, approve the ambulance to replace the one that's no longer in service. But it would come with an appendage of 2 or 3 additional PC positions.
Yeah.
That were already in the budget.
Right.
The budget's not being reduced. And we saw the same issue with the police cars last year.
Yeah.
Where we had this increased proposal for vehicles, but we didn't see any reduction to the police budget. So they were going to continue with the same amount of funding, but also get cars that are already being budgeted historically. So my concern is, are we adding personnel costs and shifting it into the bond, basically not showing true?
I got the answer to that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think the answer to your question is we're asking to bond for those things that are the major purchases, but the operating costs are then added to the tax cap, and so they are paid on a regular basis. So we do not bond for that. But within the bond, it's if we buy these items, like a new firehouse, for example, we then ask for permission to raise the tax cap to put in the operating budget those ongoing personnel costs and those kinds of things.
So it's not, but there are positions that are.
Yeah, but it comes up in the bond approval. The bond approval is, for example, a new fire station. However, many $1 million for the fire station, plus the approval to increase the operating budget for the ongoing operating expenses.
That's great. I will, it sounds, you sounded very authoritative on that, so I will trust you. I will also. It's great.
It's great.
Beth is our expert. Great, okay. Wonderful. It's a good question, Dana.
I have a question. I was told by PM&E that we wouldn't be doing CIP surveys this year.
No, we don't.
We are, okay, 'cause I
Absolutely,
followed up
definitely.
and I haven't heard anything other than we wouldn't be doing.
No, we are definitely doing the CIP service.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
When? Cause it was supposed to be now.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, Chelsea is,
Yeah, on leave.
is on leave, so she'll be back very shortly.
Okay, so when.
And I just heard IT and PM&E are working on making the software work a little better. I think there was, anyway, I think we'll be having more news about that soon. But yes,
Okay.
it is happening.
Okay,
And it's
are they
gonna
gonna
be soon.
communicate with me around, cause I emailed and asked.
Okay, the answer is yes, the survey is definitely happening.
Okay.
Just to add on to Art, I just heard on NPR, the news tonight, CIP is due, I think, the end of February.
No.
No.
No, they were specifically talking about CIP.
Nope, it's not out.
That's a state CIP. not the
Yeah,
municipal.
Okay. I have extended, since it's late, things extended every year, which is just this mad scenario of having to do a good job.
Yeah,
Right.
okay, I can definitely take that feedback.
And then, the feedback from the assembly is that it's like too late, it's too late in the game, but we don't get it
Right.
like till February, and so it's not on this, the councils that they need 3 months to get through it, and it's like, we're waiting on IT every year, and Chelsea knows this, I'm not berating her amazing work, just more frustrated.
I think we're all aware there's definitely room for improvement in the CIP. I mean, I think something I've heard from you all as frustration is you submit your ideas to the CIP. Best case scenario,
Right.
they get funded 7 years later.
Right.
Right, because the CIP is a 6-year process. So I mean, that's for me personally, like we have priorities today. So I think we need to do a lot of thinking about the CIP.
Yeah, we've asked to have those conversations.
Okay, Steve, I think you were last on the list. Then we're gonna move on.
Okay, regarding CIP projects, how much of that 38 million for 42nd Avenue?
For 42nd, let's look it up. Oh, this.
The details are.
They didn't fit on the one sheet.
Right.
For 42nd. None of this bond is for 42nd, so that might have been funded in a previous bond.
Well, half of it was, but wait on
Okay.
the second half, your
Yeah.
phase two, so.
I mean, this is a pretty skinny road bond, so I'm looking at the list and the first third of it is AMAT's match. So that's the federal match, and then the middle bucket is like chip sealing, flooding, glaciation, drainage annual program, pavement and subbase rehabilitation annual program, road and drainage rehabilitation annual program, storm drainage deficiencies annual program. That's the vast majority of it. A little more federal match. And then there's really only a few named projects, only about 5 or 6 named projects. And
Yes, nothing for design, good for the design funding, pretty soon.
not in this bond. I don't know what, but to the previous question, we may have existing authorization that we're planning to use for that.
I'll call just.
On the topic of 42nd, Darryl was gonna have a very short question. We can take less.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the commitment from the mayor's office was that they would visit all the community councils. That hasn't happened yet.
Thank you for asking my question, Bernie, because I asked you that in December and said
You did.
how many councils?
Yeah, so you're right, we did not keep that, yeah, I know Barb came and said that we were gonna visit twice and that did not happen, and so,
They didn't get once.
yeah.
Yeah.
Apologize for that.
I would say like on average, from minutes,
Yeah,
maybe the mayor's office was like at 9 community council meetings per quarter.
Mm.
And often not outside the wall.
yeah, I think Heard and Apollo, especially Ingrid, friends in Ingrid.
Definitely.
I always remember, so I have a soft spot and I appreciate that. I think we're figuring out a promise we can keep for this year. I think, hopefully we'll make it to, I guess, especially if you have not been visited, and I don't wanna put the burden back on you, because the responsibility shouldn't be on us to come visit you, but please let me know, and especially if you feel like you haven't gotten to hear from us, or if there's a specific topic you want to hear from us on. In the short term, while we figure out a plan and make sure we're being equitable, please reach out to me personally, and we will make it a priority to come out and visit with you, and especially if there's a specific topic you want to talk about. So thanks for saying that.
Thank you very much, Greg. We're gonna
Thanks,
move
Greg.
on. We're gonna move on to the next presentations.
Is it bad talking about bonds again?
No. Challenge.
Well, we don't have that going for a second.
Right.
Or school board.
Planning is not here, but I can give it a
Can you
quick
do that?
update on the mailer funding that you guys approved. So, the new community council boundary changes passed in January. The new maps are out and our website is up to date. If you want a physical copy of the map of your community council, email Tom Davis and he can get you connected with a physical copy. We are not printing them, but Tom and planning will print it for you. The mailers, I am waiting for the address and then I'm hoping soon, like in less than a month, I'm having those go out. So I don't know the total cost because I don't know the total number of addresses that are being affected, but I'm waiting for Tom to give me that and then we'll get those puppies out. So Boniface area, you know, like that was part of it, notifying those people. Glen Alps had some changes. I know South Edition and Fairview had some exchange. So there's all these like small areas, but that's the update on the mailers.
One small nuance to that is, we can only send the mailers to the addresses of whom pays the tax, which is typically the owners. So not necessarily the residents, so there's just that caveat, so
Right.
any other.
That's the list planning gives
Yeah,
us.
so as we get from planning, so any other outreach that people can suggest or think of that's helpful, we can also take it.
So what's that, Ariana, do you want any input from us to go to those people?
We're hoping to have them consistent and more in the format of like the notice that you would maybe get from like a road project or something. And they will link like QR codes that link directly to your website for them to sign up for newsletters, maps, but I'm hoping to have the format consistent so that we're not trying to like, it's only gonna be a postcard. They're gonna be super small. So we're not gonna have a ton of space for like, here's my projects.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to our next topic, which is community challenge grants.
And my apologies, Beth is here, not Diana.
Hi, I'm Beth Nordland. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I have brand new headphones on and they're working really well. I'm excited. So the Anchorage Park Foundation is your nonprofit partner that supports parks, trails, green belts, outdoor recreation, and all things in that realm. And we do challenge grants every couple of years funded by the Rasmussen Foundation. And the point of that is to challenge people to apply for capital improvement projects that they want to see happen. And we have offered challenge grants to most of the community councils in the room. Hi, everyone. I like seeing your whole, on the owl shows you as a big line. Hi, wave at me. Kathy, come on, man. All right. So again, we have a challenge grant opportunity. It's a little bit different this year. We're allowing people to apply for up to $50,000 per project. So it's a higher max. And then we're especially trying to court Eagle River and Girdwood. Hello, Eagle River. So we are really hoping that we can spread these dollars and the challenge around to the whole community. The proposals, your applications are due on April the 10th, and there's an online work session on March the 10th, so you can learn more about how to apply. Everyone that participates in these work sessions, you definitely end up scoring better. You apply for things that are just more likely to get funded when you've had an opportunity to chat with the landscape architect about your idea. And then, so March 10th is an online workshop and March 19th is an in-person workshop that'll be done at Russian Jack Springs Park Chalet. Steve Callahan, are you going to either of those, both of them? Maybe.
Doing the online one, fortunately, committed something else. For the in-person meeting, but I'll be at the online.
So this is your
Online.
opportunity to talk with the landscape architect and learn about, how to get a better proposal. And you're much more likely to get approved if you do this. And the Society of Landscape Architects, and Steve is one, just participates as volunteers to help us out and help us look at all of these community ideas. This is my favorite time of year. This is the time when people come to us with their great ideas, and then and there's new people every year, and it's an opportunity to build community through offering this challenge. So, over the years, we've done just about everything, but if you go online and take a look at the application, it should be only 3 pages this year and no more. We have a new budget form that's hopefully even more understandable. So that one is always a challenge. But we like trails, access, connectivity, environmental stewardship, and habitat improvement, recreation facilities and amenities, youth education and their outdoor learning spaces, safety, security, and maintenance, and all things that fit in those categories. The challenge is a 1-to-1 match. That means for every dollar that you apply for and receive, you can match that with your volunteer time, with in-kind contributions. And so it's unusual in that way. Sometimes people apply for a huge project and we're just a partial funder. And sometimes people, Eagle Scouts, apply for a little project and we help manage the money. If you're a big nonprofit, we might just write you a check. But if you're a group of people, we might just create a little fund for you and pay your bills. So we try to make it as easy as possible. We want to see your applications, and we're looking forward to working with you on your great ideas. I am also available to answer any questions about the park bonds, which is Proposition 3. It's 6.05 million this year, and a couple of the projects unlock other kinds of funding. There's the Fish Creek Trail to the Ocean unlocks federal funding, and the Town Square Park project unlocks private funding from the Rasmussen Foundation. We have a $500,000 community challenge specifically from the Rasmussen Foundation for Town Square Park. So the mayor is looking for corporate contributions to show support for that downtown gem. We're also supporting the road bond this year. It's got $500,000 for downtown pedestrian wayfinding. And we like the CASA bond Proposition 8 for the Basher Road access. I guess the other thing I just want to say, I should probably come talk to you more frequently than instead of just every 2 years with the challenge grant opportunity. But for all the projects that we're doing in 2026, and there are some in most neighborhoods, I would love to be working with you on the celebrations, on if there's a volunteer component, if we want to do anything special, if we want to save a date that works for you, if we're trying to get any special media attention, tell a special story about our history or anything. There's great storytelling opportunities, great community building opportunities in just about every neighborhood in 2026. So yeah, we want to partner with you. And if ever you are hearing about something at the last minute, that's because we're going at 100 miles an hour. But I really want to work with you to celebrate with you as partners. So I saw a question in the chat.
Yeah, Beth, I put a question in the chat. Do you have to be a nonprofit in order to apply for the challenge grant?
No, it has to be 2 people or more. And you don't have to have approval yet from your community council. And so I just want to underline that part. Like there could be people that apply for projects, even in your neighborhoods that you've never met, that your community council has not approved. Any project that applies still has to go through regular process. And so they would still have to go in front of your community council to get approval. It's more likely that they'll get a better score if they have more community support. So if they've already talked to their community council, it's more likely that it's a doable project. But yeah, you do not have to be a nonprofit. That is my husband's air compressor. I'll put myself on mute when you ask the next question.
Any questions in the room? Kathy?
Yeah, hey Beth, I'm here. I did notice in the description, both in the paper and then on this flyer where, under the Parks and Rec on, you've got Fish Creek Trail as the project, not Fish Creek Trail Connection. And of course, there are definitely 2 different entities. So, I was going to ask you what was proposed for Fish Creek Trail, because I wasn't aware of anything. And so you clarified it's the connection, but it doesn't have that in the description that's going out so far. Will the ballot be different and clarify that that's Fish Creek Connection project, not the project on the other part of Fish Creek Trail?
I don't know the answer to that, but I can tell you what's on this list is really that AMATS project.
Voters
And
should
that's
probably
should know.
More. Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes the ballot is really truncated, but that's a bond council thing. We will have, the city does every year a story map so that you can click on the project and learn more about it. I don't know how many people click on the thing, but it is a pretty easy to navigate map, so I can answer that part of that. But we have the list up on our website. I can edit the list on our website to say the Fish Creek Trail Connection to the ocean. Is that what it's officially called?
Well, when our group started this, 10, 15 years ago, we called ours Fish Creek Trail to Ocean, but it morphed into Fish Creek Trail Connection. Once it became an AMATS project. So I don't know how to answer that question. Officially, it's the connection now. But if it's not listed as the connection project on the ballot, I'm just wondering technically if that could be an issue.
I doubt it. I don't think it is an issue, but that's a nomenclature thing.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, they say Fish Creek, is that EMAP project?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
and
so
that is
maybe-
the, what is that? Is it the match? It's the local match, which is
10 to
what?
1 or something?
No, it's 9% union.
Yeah, 10 to 1.
9%.
9%.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they probably named it whatever it took to get the AMAX process, so.
Yeah. But we've got in 2026, we're going to do a groundbreaking finally for the coastal trail to the Ship Creek Trail connection that I think the voters approved that 9%, something like 5 years in a row on park bonds. And we are going to build the downtown trail connection in 2026. I think the biggest event the Park Foundation is going to work on this summer is the opening of the redevelopment of the little plaza right there at Fish Creek, which is very different than the Fish Creek Trail to the ocean. It's the little bridge that goes over the coastal trail over the Fish Creek. And we're going to do a big event on August the 27th. And it's going to include the Great Land Trust and Audubon and all the indigenous placemaking partners. So we've set it.
You're including Turnagain Community Council.
Yeah, we set a date for that. It's during the week after school. So after school starts, and during the week, I think it's a Thursday night, but it could be a Wednesday. Anyway, that's our big deal.
Okay, any other further questions? Not seeing any in the room or online. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I got to come back more often.
Yes, please.
I love hearing you go around the room and say the most important things in all of your neighborhoods. One-stop shopping for me. Really love it.
We'll have to come to 3 meetings in a row to hear all the community.
Okay.
Thank you both. Okay, so we're at pretty much at the end of our coalition meeting. So since we still have a few questions left on the bylaws topic, what I'd like to do is just jump back to that and spend maybe the last 15 minutes on any additional questions on bylaws.
Tim had one
Tim
online.
did have one online, so I don't see him though. Tim left us.
Tim, are you there?
And I think Alan, you had a question as well. So.
Great. Yeah.
Okay, looks like we lost Tim. Okay. Let's go to Kathy first, and then I'll come back to Alan or I know technically you're not out of it, but I'm not sure that we have asked Lithuanian friend here. Well, start with Kathy.
I am the delegate.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. There's a battle.
Yes, Kathy Gleason, Turnagain Community Council. I would go back to that liaison position that was mentioned earlier and get some clarification. What I've been involved with community councils as a volunteer, as a delegate, as an officer, I'm not council, not on board at FCC board since 1982. So I've seen it all through where it's functioned well, where it had a few problems, some ups and downs, funding issues, and the whole 9 yards. Would this liaison position and that kind of buffering between delegates who are not elected to the board? So if, as a delegate, you'd have to go through the liaison, and you can't just approach the board itself. I mean, is that an extra layer of there are concerns if you want to propose something? You have to go through this liaison person that's going to be specifically there so that the board just can focus on the nonprofit stuff.
It's really our intent.
The opposite, I would say.
Yeah.
What we wanted to make sure is somebody had the job, had a specific responsibility to guarantee there is communication. That's the job of the liaison. But
So it's not somebody's job.
yeah, it's not, the problem is if you have this dispersed, then nobody potentially has that responsibility. You know, we potentially have that problem with the board of 30 on it. Nobody really has the responsibility for certain things. It all ends up falling on the 4 people on the executive board. So, so the point of the liaison is to have somebody who has specific responsibility. They are not meant to be the only person who does that. So communication should be as open as needed.
Okay, so just to clarify, so that they would have the responsibility to be that liaison to the council, make sure we all know what's going on and this and that. But if the council has an issue, a problem, a question, a proposal, whatever the case may be, they don't have to go to the liaison, or can you just approach the board at all?
That is not the intent, that they have to go to the liaison. So the purpose of the liaison is so we have somebody who's, you know, wearing that hat every day. So that's not the only, it's not meant to be the only thing.
Okay, thank you.
Marilyn?
Piggybacking off of Kathy, what's the accountability for the liaison position for disseminating that information?
So that would lie with the coalition, like, are you getting the information you need? There would be reports back and forth, you know, sort of, you know, when you have your standard agenda, one of those things would be the liaison, who would be chairing the coalition meeting, reports, this is what the board of directors discussed, these are any decisions that were made. Here's, for example, when we're planning the budget information session.
But the community council that brings the issue to the liaison, who then takes it to the board at large.
So
what's the accountability that communication line does happen?
Can you give me like an example of where like the community council would,
I don't have
like, where that might pick up?
don't really have a specific
Spelling.
information or question, other than I know it runs our community council folks who are very concerned about, again, being disenfranchised. And if they're feeling that way, then I bring this issue again to the liaison, then the liaison takes it to the board at large. And what's the communication back to our community council?
So if you're taking a concern to the liaison or directly to board of directors, if you don't hear back about the concern, I mean, a non-response is also a response, right? And so if you're not getting the response that you have requested as a coalition member, you know, as the delegate, you can hold them accountable. Like, when can we expect an answer? And if you're ghosted, you know, there's the opportunity to remove them from that office, and elections can happen through the vacancy
Isn't that
process.
addressed in rules of procedure number 6 on page 3?
Probably. Page 3.
Someone run it.
Okay.
Delegates can now raise a formal concern relevant to the organization by passing a motion, and the board of directors must answer within 30 days.
Yes.
So that is the procedure if you're not hitting.
Or you could remove the board. You can go
Right.
through the procedures of removing board members if they're not doing what you want them to do.
So the idea here is there's a way it's meant to work, which is through regular communication. If that doesn't work and it becomes a serious issue, then there's this formal process of requiring an answer within 30 days. If that doesn't work, then you go to the point of removal. So we have this kind of escalating process where the delegates can basically control the board that becomes out of control. I think in some cases it would be really helpful to have examples of the sort of questions you're asking, because I've definitely heard some misunderstanding about the things that the board will do versus the things that the coalition and community councils do. So if the concern is about, you know, an issue around Tisdale or an issue about how you're getting information from planning, that's direct. It's got nothing to do with the board. If it's an issue about who our vendor is for the website, or when we have changes in employment practices, that's where the board comes in. Typically, community councils don't care about that. So that's the kind of distinction of these two roles.
Not to interrupt, but, I know we have some longtime people of our community council who are very concerned about that. Disenfranchisement,
So what specific examples?
well, I don't have any.
Right, so again, if it's the website then if it's about what our policies are on financial plan or financial management,
Yeah.
then that's something where the board would take responsibility. If it's about the relationships between the, planning department, what's happening, land use, how often the mayor's office comes in, that's got nothing to do with the board, that's direct.
I have been trying diligently to get folks to go to the website, the FCC website, in order to look up all of these things. And,
Yeah, I mean,
being old timers they are on the board or on the council, they just.
I guess to piggyback off of, Mike's explanation, like, as a board, like, the idea of the board would be to kind of get out of your way. So that you could more directly communicate about the types of things that are affecting the communities as opposed to some smaller policies or vendors or like the minutia. But it's important. Yeah.
Well, there's a procedure in place. Yeah, that.
If something goes wrong, Danny.
Thank you. Yes, my concerns are partially, I appreciate Kathy raising this issue again. That the coalition liaison, maybe it's a question of terminology, maybe it's a question of, we've got a chair or president chairing the board. And then we've got a liaison who's chairing delegate meetings. And I can really easily see how a member of the public, other community councils, people who will be here in the same seats after us, the mayor's office, legislators, anyone who's going to interact with the organization might see, oh, well, the chair is the person who chairs, right? But when you have a chair, but they don't chair the meetings, the liaison chairs the meetings. But the liaison isn't leadership, they're not the chair. And so when the mayor's office wants to meet with the liaison, or the assembly wants to meet with the liaison, or they go in public and say, I'm a liaison for the board member, there's a natural confusion I would expect there about what role they're really speaking from. And so I look at the way that it's defined, at least in this draft, because my intent is to help us create a more better product. And I'm concerned that we may be creating an additional board position because maybe there's work that doesn't fall neatly into one bucket or another right now, but I would say for process, it would be helpful for me or, maybe someone with less knowledge of the organization to have the chair be the person that chairs the meeting naturally. And some of the duties of reporting on the actual board of delegates to the membership, I've been comfortable with capabilities of staff doing that. I've enjoyed because they are day to day plugged in. All the emails go through their email box, right? They're the ones oftentimes most informed. And so I don't want to add on additional duties that aren't already being done. Some of this can be done by staff, the way we've sort of been doing it. I'm concerned that they may be duplicating the role and causing a little bit of confusion with this.
Okay, yeah, so, the coalition liaison is still a board member and is still an officer, so they're still subject to all the same rules that any of the other board members are, and so they, like, the chair can't speak formally without permission from the board, and it would be the same with the coalition liaison. I think also, like, as staff, if there's an update, I generally give it, even if Mike is like the chair, right? But
Yes.
I think it's helpful to have somebody of the body from a staff perspective who is responsible to the body on making sure that certain things happen, because I'm not a voting member. I am staff. And so having somebody who is of you, reporting to you and responsible to you is helpful. I can still give the physical report, right? I can still be like, here's the program updates, but that person is the one who would be held accountable by this body and like makes that cleaner so that I don't have 30 people trying to hold me accountable for something when that like communication with staff.
Thank you. I appreciate that perspective. I understand and I'm very sensitive to that because I think we ask a lot of our very small staff. A nonprofit would have more staff doing these duties if we had a larger budget. It comes back to, for me, why wouldn't the chair just do a chair or president's report and be responsible and accountable to the body? That's typically what the role is. Or could the secretary do that? Could they be the one? What are the duties of the secretary? Are they substantial? Or is this something that they can be reporting to the body on? Why do we need? I mean, if we just want to have a larger executive board with an at-large seat, let's call it that. But when we start assigning duties that aren't clearly different than anybody else's, like we've always passed the gavel off from one board member to another. That's not something we have to specify. Perhaps we just are trying to have a larger executive board so we have more capacity, and that I can understand, but I don't know that having the liaison be tasked with doing those things is maybe. Oftentimes the chair is the one who's in the room, who's been invited to these things, and so it's a training process, one, to get folks to go through a liaison, but then you have the information to people's heads. And so you end up almost having a two-person report rather than a one-person report.
Yeah, I think there was like a appetite from the body in previous conversations to have the board be separate from the coalition with the chair as well, to have some like distinction there. So some of that came from like feedback that we got from the multiple, which I know you weren't present for, it's fine, just like providing some was like, that was some of the feedback that we got was like, hey, actually I want this to be separate, and it was like taken in by the committee.
But if I can ask a clarifying question, what I'm hearing from you is that the chair of one would be the chair of the other, and that would be the center of this Venn diagram. That's the overlap, right?
I think we're all getting to the point where we can wrap our heads around the fact that there is the nonprofit and then there's the Federation of Community Councils, you know, that we are the delegates from each individual council. And I can understand where if the body wishes to have two separate leadership structures, you take one hat off, you put the other hat on. You know, I'm chair of the board of delegates, but I'm just here on the board, letting the liaison chair a meeting for the delegates. If that works for the body, fine, but I think that we have to be really clear in how we message that to the public, because if they come in and go, who's in charge of the various community councils? Yeah, well,
Yeah.
do you mean the nonprofit or the federation? Like,
And that could be a clear policy, right? We, as one of the papers or the references, there was like a list of suggestion policies that have kind of come out of this, because not everything is addressable in the bylaws. You don't want to like nickel and dime the bylaws, but it's a great comment for like, okay, the policies of the like the standing policy or operating procedures for the coalition maybe needs a little bit more beefing in that, or like maybe there's some more, the board needs more beefing in its policies about like who does what and why.
So, you keep that human, sorry.
Yeah, one question, the corporate charter with the assembly specifically uses the term board of delegates. Now, if we change the structure, then the assumingly the corporate charter has to change, and does that need assembly approval?
No,
And we can change them at the same time.
no, that's the articles of incorporation.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. And we told, we've given the clerk a heads up that we're like in the process and considering this, and they had no qualms about it. So it's a matter of language, and that just requires an amendment to our grant that says like we have this new setup. Their intention is that this body is regularly meeting, that this body is regularly meeting publicly, and that we're supporting this body. And so we can show that and provide like the new details of how that would be actionable for our grant. But you're totally right. The grant would need to have an amendment, but that we passed an amendment last year. It's pretty simple for us to make those changes with the meeting.
So I just had a question for clarification, and I think it might help clear the air a little bit. Is the intent, the board of, what we used to call the board of delegates, had an executive board within the delegation, president, vice president, treasurer.
Secretary.
Those positions appear to be moving to the board of directors within the corporation. And if they are, what is the executive board structure going to be for the board of delegates?
That's where that coalition liaison comes in.
One person.
One person.
So we're taking a group that used to be 3 or 4 and turning it into one for the board of delegates, and then the board of directors is going to be separate within the corporation. Although they'll also be delegates at the same time. You know what I'm talking about? Because remember when you were president? We had,
Yes.
with president,
We have to file with corporations, business and professional license.
Yes.
So we have to have officers listed on.
no, I get that.
Yeah, so at the corporate level, there have to be those items assigned.
Right.
I agree.
Beyond that, I think there's a lot of latitude in what we can do within, within the bounds of the municipal charter as well. I think that's a good point.
So I just wasn't sure what the in-state structure for the delegation was going to be as far as leadership roles.
So the body that meets as the coalition can also, like, delegates can be on committees. So they can be on ad hoc committees, they can be on standing committees, like they're eligible for those committees. But the person who basically runs the meeting and coordinates what happens at the meetings, that's in this draft, as a, draft 2 as it stands, is that coalition liaison who's acting as the chair of the coalition.
So it's a singular leadership role within the delegation, the delegates.
Yes.
And if that individual can't make it,
So if that individual can't make it, then the body can decide amongst itself, who would like to run this meeting?
okay.
So ideally, they could decide among themselves before that happens. It's something we could
Yeah,
include.
there is also, we started working on another document outside of the bylaws, which would be kind of rules and procedures for the coalition meetings. That's work standing rules. That's work that will probably continue. And we can nuance that and make it work in the way that the coalition of delegates wants it to work. But that's outside of the bylaws itself. The bylaws just says there is this one position that has responsibility for guaranteeing there's communication going on. And then the details of how the coalition works, how the coalition meetings work, can be a little bit more organic, and that can happen outside of the bylaw. So we have started that process, but some of the details are to be determined. For example, is there a vice chair? There could be.
Just a real quick question. So when the coalition of delegates meet, would the FCC board of directors be a part of that meeting like you are now, or do you even have to attend? Because now you're saying it's the liaison that would run the meeting, who's gonna take minutes? That sort of thing. I'm confused about the dynamics of that.
It will still be staff. So there would still be staff presence at the coalition meetings.
So they generally take the minutes.
So that's the answer to the minutes question.
Yes.
But technically, we have an officer position, as a third position, right?
Yes.
Then on the board, which will now just be FCC as a nonprofit. So those who are going to be, just to reiterate, the officers and board members of the nonprofit won't even be meeting with the rest of the.
No, we would be in attendance.
So correct me if I'm wrong, that would be because they would participate as delegates because those positions are being selected from delegates. Now, if we had one of those positions we talked about earlier where they were from a 24-month past, they may not be at this meeting.
Sure. Right. Or if
Because
we
they're
are, we're
a
not
delegate.
voting.
But if you're a delegate assigned, you should be at a delegate's meeting.
Yeah.
That would include a board member who's a delegate.
It just means some people get extra meetings.
Right. But for example, if there's a Spinard delegate, but I'm on the board, for example, I don't get to vote in whatever coalition stuff is happening. That's the role of Spinard delegate. But I might be here as a member of the board.
Well, I guess what's concern is that, for our council bylaws, they basically lay out specifically the responsibility, how committees are appointed, committee chairs are appointed, right? And it's the president of the council, right? And for what I'm hearing, I'm not hearing, how this coalition is going to determine, when and who is going to for a committee. Is it going to be, you say it's going to be organic? Then, okay, well, is everybody going to form a committee of one? So I just, there's a lot of uncertainty and ambiguity that seems to be prevalent. sort of really make it a functional organization that needs coalition work from a practical level. And in ours, we included that guidance as part of the bylaws, but what we change, it's something that you have, expectations, right? This is how they're going to be run. And they're not subject to, organically, well, it's going to be run this way this month, it's going to be run that way that the other 6 months from now.
Right, so the committees that form from the coalition, because the coalition has determined like this is something that needs committee attention. That would be in the standing rules, like that would be outlined there. But if the board of directors determines that something needs committee attention at the board level, then it does, one of the directors is the chair of the committee. But the coalition members are eligible to serve on that committee. So there are two different ways to do committee work, and it kind of depends on what kind of committee we're looking at.
Yeah, an example might be you want like a committee to talk about TISDO, that would be coalition. But then the board of directors wants a committee to talk about like the next summit, right? And so that's a committee to talk about like programmatic issues for the nonprofit and get input from councils on what they want to see at the next summit. And then, the coalition might say, oh, we want to talk about bonds. So or marijuana and alcohol, and that would be a different kind of committee that would form. So kind of like, right, two scopes of work there.
And just to point out, there is a suggested standing rules for coalition delegates is already in one of the documents. So we have a document which says how committees would be set up for the coalition of delegates. So we already have guidelines for that, which are available. They are technically outside the bylaws, but it's one of the main documents we've been providing.
Yeah, and the idea is that once the coalition was formally formed by the organization, they would review and adopt their own standing rules. So this is only a suggestion because only you can set your own standing rules. You wouldn't want, the bylaw committee to set them for you, but they have a suggestion.
My last comment is that I appreciate everybody's patience with me in getting up to speed with all of this and trying to understand how the organization is going to be operating. And I just thank you very much for your patience.
Okay. Thank you. It's almost 8:15, so I'll be respectful of everyone's time and
We were
should-
go forward. What do you want?
oh yes, next step, I'm gonna ask you, what's the next steps on the
So again, obviously, we're not gonna vote on this before March. As you read through these, if you have suggestions for how we could amend it, if there's something you think needs to be reworded, something you think needs to be clarified, please write it down. Please feel free to send it to any of the bylaw committee members.
Or
Or what?
Or info at community councils.
At community councils. The in writing really helps us, so we can put that in and we don't have to try to determine what you meant. And then we can discuss it at the March meetings, but yeah, in writing is really helpful. That's up to Mike.
My hand's been up for a while.
Okay, I've only looked at you when your hand was down, really quick.
Okay, can we get a copy of this? Page numbers and line numbers.
It has page numbers.
Line number.
Oh, you want line numbers, that makes sense. I think that's.
It makes everything line number.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, so the bylaw committee is asking for, if you have changes you want to make, bring amendments to the next meeting for the body, for the group to decide.
Yes.
The idea is it's not going back to a committee. You guys are now in the decision-making process on what you want changing.
But if you have questions on like, I don't know how to do an amendment, or
Sure.
like,
Yep. Can still answer questions.
yeah, we can absolutely answer those questions.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Thank you for sticking here to the bitter end. We did a job. Thank you very much.